Hello, everyone, and welcome to our IEEE Young Professionals webinar today. Today we have a webinar from one of our societies, from the Technology and Engineering Management Society, TEMS, Young Professional a webinar. I'm going to give a brief introduction, and then I'm going to hand it over to Mohammed from the TEMS society to give an introduction on exactly the benefits of joining that society are. But before that, today our webinar is presented by Elya Joffe, which is he's the president and founder of his own Electromagnetic Solutions company. More on him in the coming slides. But before that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Matthew Carius. I'm the webinar specialist for the MGA Young Professionals Board. I'm also the vice chair for communications and marketing at the IEEE Young Professionals Global Board. We'll be hosting monthly webinars in 2015 and going into 2016 as well. So stay tuned for those webinars. During the actual webinar, please type any questions you may have in the question box below. You can upvote your questions as it become more relevant, and then all questions will be answered at the end during a 5-minute Q&A session. One of our new initiatives we're having at the Young Professionals Global Board is free meetup events at global or high-impact conferences around the world, and we're really trying to hit each region. So just at the beginning of November, we actually had a present at Web Summit in Region 8 in Dublin. We were at TechCon in Macau. We were in the International Microwave Symposium back in May, South by Southwest in March, and we are hosting free YP or Young Professional events at these international, in conjunction with these high-impact international conferences. And the good thing is that you don't actually have to register for the big conference to attend these free meetings, so you can still get to have the feel for the meeting of have a feel for the actual meeting without actually attending the whole 5 to 10 day conference. So stay tuned for exciting events coming up. Connect with young professionals online. We have some new career-based services, Mentor Center and the Resume Lab. We also have we're also present on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. Please see us on YouTube, where all of our webinars are posted, approaching almost 100 videos. And if you haven't done so already, please join our Young Professionals community on Collaboratech, which is the premier networking and collaboration site for technology professionals. And we are posting content daily on that portal. So please join our Young Professionals community there. And just a little bit more on our speaker today. He's the founder and president of Electromagnetic Solutions, an engineering consulting firm in Israel since 2014, since last year. Since then he's been with KTM Project Engineering as a VP of Engineering and Senior EMC Engineering Specialist Consultant. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Ben Gurion University in Israel. But before that, like I mentioned before, we have Mohammed, who's going to be introducing the TEMS Society with us today. So before the webinar, we will have the TEMS an introduction to TEMS. So Mohammed, please take it away. Bring up.
Thank you, Matthew. So can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah. You just go ahead and click the full screen there.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Mohammed Mustafa. I'm the education chair for the Technology and Engineering Management Society, Young Professionals. I would like to welcome you to the, actually it's the 5th webinar for the IEEE TEMS webinar series. And I would like to give you a brief about Technology and Engineering Management Society. It's actually a new society, but it has a history of 66 years. It started in the 1951, but like last year or like the beginning of January 2015, it became one of the 39 technical societies that IEEE has. So the vision for the TEMS is to be the premier resource of essential management and leadership knowledge. their mission is to advance, enhance, and improve essential management and leadership for like skills of the IEEE members. As of benefits, IEEE TEMS has different benefits that the users, like the TEMS members and IEEE members, can benefit from. It's like they have
Mohammed,
yes.
your slides aren't changing. I think you got to put it into full screen on the on your other screen. We're just seeing the PowerPoint right now.
It's already on full screen here.
I think you have to share the other screen, because yeah, there we go. Okay,
this
so
one?
Now I see benefits. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So the benefits are it will introduce IEEE TEMS about the best way to understand how to manage engineering, technology, and innovation. It will give you material about how to learn and think strategically and develop business perspective, as well as participate in technical committees and chapters that focus on special areas of interest and issues related to IEEE technology and engineering management industry in general. Also, you will get a chance to collaborate with leading scholars and practitioners and gain access to educational programs and resources to bring your management qualification to a new level. To connect to the IEEE TEMS, you will be able to go directly to our website. It's IEEE-TEMS.org, and also we have a Facebook page that's very active, and we keep posting a lot of topics, activities there. So also you can like that page, so you'll keep hearing about our latest activities. Also, if you have any questions, you can also hi Kamar, who's the chair of the young professionals at IEEE TEMS. His email is Kamar at IEEE.org, or you can reach Matthew.
Yes. Hello. Sorry, I was muted. Yes. Sorry, I was muted. Oh, perfect. So thank you for that introduction to the society. I'm gonna transfer over to Elya now. Again, thank you, Elya. Please, looking forward to an excellent webinar. So please go ahead.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening for wherever all of you are joining in this talk this evening. It's a pleasure to be with you and share with you all a little of my insight on what leadership is. This is part of a series of talks I give on working engineer skills, and admittedly, I've been in several leadership positions, as you might see, chairing, presiding over 2 societies, and also chairing a non-IEEE board. So through that, I've gained some insights, which I hope to be able to share with you this evening my time. I like starting with this slide, which basically says we have 3 types of people in the world: those that make things happen, those who watch things happen, and of course there are always those who wonder what happened, or even if anything has happened at all. So where is the leader amongst these? I'm sure you all would guess. Actually, like in the TV game Jeopardy, you know, you give an answer and you must guess the question, right? So if I were to put down the Jeopardy answer that everybody talks about it, few understand it, most people want it, but few people achieve it. So what is the Jeopardy question? I would say it is, what is leadership? We hear a lot about leaders, leadership. What does it mean? Putting it in one word, influence. Putting it in three words, ability to influence. Or in other words, the ability to get followers, to obtain followers, to get people to follow you. That's the essence of leadership. And of course, for that, you have to know yourself, you have to know how to collaborate with others, and you have to be able to move them or motivate others to follow. So why do you need to care about leadership? Actually, each and every one of you as members of the IEEE somewhere will or have or both applied leadership skills. I would say that the essence of IEEE is in leadership. If you're in a chapter or student branch, in a section, in a regional scale, in the global scale, chairing a symposium or some activity, who knows, perhaps one of you in future will be the president of IEEE, and of course at work. Actually, I would say in all of the above, right? So you really get to apply leadership skills in all levels of your life, at home, at work, and naturally in the IEEE. I loved it when in the Sections Congress of 2014, the acronym of IEEE was spelled out as you might see it here. Inspire, enable, empower, and engage. Isn't that great? It's actually everything that a leader does. And IEEE provides us with so many opportunities. Definitely one of them, beyond education, the networking, socializing, business, career development, it provides us with leadership opportunities. And you know, what is the beauty? We're all volunteers, right? It's a very safe environment to develop your leadership skills because, well, you can be fired, but nobody can cut your salary, right? Half of nothing is still nothing. So you really develop your leadership skills, depending on the tier or the level, of course, in a very safe, a very friendly, and a very understanding environment. So it's no surprise that leadership is embedded in the name of IEEE. I've included here a few Dilbert cartoons. I'm sure you're all familiar with them, so clearly I'm not going to read through all of them, but all of them lead to the effect that those who think they are leaders or want to credit themselves with being leaders are not so quite very successful, very good leaders. And if you're familiar with the characters of Dilbert, then you realize here he says, well, one of the skills is listening skills. Well, if you read through this, and you will have time to see through it, you will see that clearly it's not one of the best skills that that character here exhibits. Well, so what do we want to do? We want to learn more about what leadership is. I would like to give you tools to identify your own potential as a leader. What is required from you? What attributes should you have? How can those skills be developed to be an effective leader? We will actually see effective leaders who were not necessarily good people, but were very good leaders, like them or not. So we will go through, and this is the outline of the talk after the preamble. What is leadership? What makes a great leadership? And I will add what makes a not so great leader. A comparison between leadership and management. Many people confuse the two. We will put a very clear line between them. Then we will show the evolution of a leader, the 5 levels you go through from the very beginning until you become, hopefully, the ultimate leader. I will complete the discussion with a primer by a very well-known general. We will see his name soon. It includes about 16 or 18 steps, good advice to what a leader should be. And finally, of course, we will summarize and go to the questions and answer session. So let's start with what is leadership. I mentioned before that leadership is the ability to influence. It's really a way to direct an organization. An organization could be your chapter, your business group, your section, or your student branch, or any other organization. Do you know what? Even your family. And direct it in such a way that it acts cohesively and coherently. Look at the cartoon here, and clearly you see, it seems like something is wrong there, right? Going in circles is not the best way of leadership. Trust me, today I had a big argument at work, exactly trying to open a closed circle. So what do you need for that? You have to have a vision, because otherwise you don't have a direction. That vision should result in goals for that group, and those goals should be known to everyone. Otherwise, how can they share the goals? How can they share the vision? A leader has to be responsible to move and motivate the group to achieve the goals and to improve the group's structure, climate, and communication. If a group is quarreling the whole time, you will not get much out of them. Most of the time, you'll be going in circles like this cartoon. And you have to influence other members in the group to become focused and productive. Believe me, in every group, there will always be members, not out of ill intentions, who will divert you or try to divert you from the main goal. And if you have set a vision and the group accepts it, then you should keep the group focused. So you could say, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? That's management. And management can force or lead the horse to water. What do you do if you want the horse to drink? Make sure it's thirsty, right? Make sure the horse is thirsty. That's leadership. You motivate him by making him want something or need something. A good leader has to motivate the people to want what he wants. Of course, if they want something else, that group will not be cohesive. So where does leadership start? If you see the little baby at the right-hand side of the slide, that's where it starts. Any one of you who has a baby at home or had a little child knows he's the leader. He sure influences everyone. He will get the parents, the brothers and sisters, twisted around his little finger. He doesn't know he's a leader, but he is. He can't speak, perhaps, but he can communicate. Crying is a very effective way of communication. We recognize the ability, the needs of that baby, and he influences us in his very way. So everybody influences someone. Everybody is influenced and influences because we are in the structure that we are part of a group, but perhaps we are also leading a group. When you're a chapter chair, you're part of a section, but you're also leading the chapter. You're also a member of the whole organization. So the catch is to know your place. How do you know your place in the organization? Sometimes you don't. How much can you influence? You don't always know. You will not always know your full ability to influence. You will only see it through the outcomes, through how people follow you. Can you do more? Perhaps. You will certainly know it when you cross the border. Trust me, and we will get to that. People will let you know when they're not going to take it. So you will see your limits, but you will never see how much you can do. You can only see how much you cannot. So that means that in order to be a leader, you have to work in some environment, and that environment includes a leader, at least one follower. And by the way, if you think that the leader is always the formal chair of the group, it's not. Look well at dynamics of a group. The chair or the president might be the one holding the gavel. But look well who comes up with the ideas, who makes the suggestions, who is able to divert the opinion of others around him. He's the real leader in the group. He may be the active, he may be formal, and he may be the person who's always there to help out, bring the discussion back to place, or say, hey, yeah, that's a good idea, but let's pull back because this is really what we wanted to do. The follower is the one who agrees to accept ideas and follow the leader. If you don't have a follower, there are no leaders, right? It's not a good idea to lead yourself. So somewhere there, if the people in the group don't know who is who, you have a problem. The leader has to be well recognized, and so the followers have to recognize the fact of who's the leader. In the animal world, it's easy. They just kill the other competitors sometimes. That's what happens with bees, with ants. The queen kills the other contenders, but we don't work that way, right? So we have to work by influence and be able to hold our position. We will go through the steps. So really, leadership is a combination of two things: a character of the leader and a strategy that the leader has. Vision is part of a strategic plan, and goals are part of it. So when you have a strategy, you know how to transform your vision into action. General Schwarzkopf said once that if you must be without one of the two, be without the strategy, because the character is the first thing. A leader, first and foremost, is a character. So let's see, therefore, what makes a great leader. Who are good leaders? Let's see here some people. Einstein, his intelligence. Kennedy with his charisma. Hitler, ambition. Churchill with persistence. Christ with service to others, and others as well, compassion, and revolutionary like Chairman Mao, and others here. So what makes a leader so great? I know that a few of these characters might be problematic. Believe me, as an Israeli, seeing Hitler here is not an easy thing. But was he a good leader? In many ways, yes. Was he able to obtain followers? In his way, yes. That doesn't mean he was a good person, perhaps, but he was, by definition, a very good leader, and so were all the others here. Each of them, in their way, changed the world, not only a little group. So, really, a leader is a person that others are willing to follow to places they would not have gone otherwise. Putting it with a little humor, someone said to me once that the leader is a person that tells you to go to HELL and you rush out to buy a first-class one-way ticket to get there as fast as you can. Well, you might say perhaps he's not a very nice guy, but if you are willing to go there with a one-way ticket, you must admire that person. Regretfully, quite a few leaders got their people, their followers exactly to that location. So when we look at characteristics, clearly they have to be inspiring, they should have a vision, charisma, they have to be dynamic, they must be able to communicate their ideas, they should be confident with themselves. I saw a case in my past of a president of a society that was so inconfident that in a vote in the board of directors, that president abstained. How much does that reflect on confidence of a president, of a chair of a board? Single-minded, he can't have two different ideas. He has to be very clear, willing to make change, clearly unconventional, and willing to take risks. Leadership is not a safe thing because you always assume some risk in making change, in driving change. Let's see that shortly. One of the greatest leaders, no doubt, was Martin Luther King. Again, he changed the world, not only the community for the Afro-Americans in America. He had a vision for sure. He even iterated very clearly, I have a dream. And his dream was a practical dream. It wasn't something theoretical. He had a vision which he was very clearly articulating, and people followed him in spite of all the challenges. They followed him because they knew, they understood what he was trying to communicate to them. Do you know, from the other extreme, Walt Disney, he said, if you can dream it, you can do it. He was a leader in a different way. A leader has to be a dreamer, but he must have his feet on the ground. You have to know your environment, remember, but you also have to look to the stars. So leadership clearly have to have a vision. They should be able to conceive new ideas and convince the followers to adopt it. I love that word game of conceive and convince. And again, if you cannot convince others, you stay stuck with your vision, but it's up in the sky because the people on the ground are not willing to implement it. If there is no power in the group to implement the vision, the leader will stay up there. That's the last thing you want. Let's take a look at it. I'm sure many of you have seen the film A Bug's Life, and if you have not, I clearly recommend to see it. So there is that little bug there. To give you a little background, the big bugs are attacking the colony of the ants, and they are on an island, and they don't know what to do. And Flick is this guy here. He was trying to convince, to lead a new way. At the beginning, you will see it's difficult to hear. He's not speaking initially very clearly, but then it will get very clear.
Then help us. Don't help us. Help?
Flick, we're sentenced to 1 month digging in the tunnel.
Excuse me, Your Highness. Need I unite your first tunnel within the tunnel project? Help us execute your task. And that's the thing. 2 days to dig them out. Sign up to help cancer.
Heavens, no!
We could leave the island. First, we should drive it. Now let's perfect. We'll get helpers. Sure. Go find helpers to help us.
It's perfect. Perfect?
What's so perfect?
Your Highness, don't you see? We could send someone to get help.
Leave the island? Now, why didn't I think of that? Oh, because it's suicide.
Right, we never leave the island.
Never leave.
To save the birds and bigger bugs out there.
Exactly. Bigger bugs. We can find bigger bugs to come here and fight and forever rid us of Hopper and his gang.
No difference.
Who would do a crazy thing like that?
I'll volunteer. I'd be very happy to volunteer.
You got a lot of spunk, kid, but no one's going to help a bunch of ants.
At least we could try. Oh, I could travel to the city. I could search there.
If you went, you'd be on that silly search for weeks.
So in this little clip, you see the leaders of the colony. But who was the real leader here? Who was the one who came with a vision and proposed to make a change? And why didn't they appreciate the efforts? We all want to remain in our comfort zone, right? It takes a leader to show a new way. It takes a leader to make a difference or to make a change, to implement a change. So we know, of course, President Obama. And what did he say? Yes, we can, right? In the first election campaign. Yes, we can. He was a leader. You can agree or disagree with his opinions, but he was a leader. He made a change. Our habits keep us in our comfort zone, but the only way to show or to implement a vision is, in fact, to make a change. Einstein said at the time that doing the same thing over and over but expecting a different result is a wonderful definition of insanity. Who wants to be insane? So good leaders, visionary leaders, by definition, look for new ways to do things when they see that something doesn't work. So we have to work as a group, but there are certain things that have to be done. A leader cannot be alone. He has to facilitate and encourage discussion. He brings a vision, but it has to be worked out by the group. He must also set an example. He must be able to articulate and share the vision, write it down, show it's on down to earth. He must encourage the followers. Who wants to follow a leader who says the whole time, it's me, 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 and me? So it has to be shared with the others and converted to actionable tasks. Otherwise, it's in the air. Of course, that means that a certain structure has to be put together. There have to be groups, committees, etc. And they have to be empowered and have some authority to go ahead. And of course, there's a culture here. You cannot make a change if you don't change a culture of the group or promote and influence the culture. So, of course, a leader means when he has a vision is something you don't have now. It's something that we want tomorrow, next year, next 5 years. A vision means we have inspiration. It also means it must be clear. Otherwise, the word vision comes from visualize, to see. It has to be clear or we can't see. It also means you have to commit to it, and it's worthwhile committing to it. And it must be such that it will generate supportive actions. Without all of these, people will not be energized. They will have no meaning or no desire to share that vision. And of course, if they don't care, then they will not try to achieve excellence. And then how do we get from the present to the future? That's what the goals do. We break the vision into actionable items that we can put into practice. So when we have leadership, we said already you have to know your followers, but you must also know yourself. Because at the end of the day, who sets your success? The followers. If you are not able to let them follow, you have failed. So you must continuously be able to convince your followers it's worth their while and time to follow you and work with you. You have to be able to communicate. The key word here is two-way. Too many leaders speak and don't want to listen. That's why we have one mouth but two ears. To show you, you have to be more attentive than speaking. This is what can make or break your relationship. And you also have to understand exactly where you are. The same leadership style will not work under all conditions. Under idle conditions, things might be easy. Under crisis, you might need a different style. They do not conflict if they're applied at the proper time. So we've seen already that there are some attributes. Let me add to those. Ethics, skills, of course. Again, you have here this cartoon, this Dilbert, that speaks about types of skills that you need. Wow, you need to read. You have to spend time. Wow, that frightens. So, yeah, those things you have to know. You have to be able to communicate, to read other work, and to share your time. So, a real good and respected leader will focus on what he is, what his beliefs are, what his characters are. By the way, when I say he, it's of course he or she. What is his knowledge, job tasks, human nature? He should know his weaknesses, his lack of knowledge, and hold advisors. And of course, his character and his knowledge are nothing if he does nothing with it. So he should be able to implement, to motivate, and to provide direction. So it starts from the inside, from the character, goes to the knowledge you acquire, and then it has to be put into practice. So let's look at bad leaders. What good leaders don't do. You do not compete with your own people. You don't have to prove that you're better than them. Furthermore, try to cultivate the next leaders. Don't consider them as a lousy team. Remember, if they are your team and you chose them, what does that say about the leader? How about being popular ahead of effectiveness? It's a near-term issue. If you are popular, people with integrity, if you put popularity instead of effectiveness, people with integrity will leave. What does that make you of a leader? A very important one, don't sacrifice the means for the end. For instance, unethical behavior to get a good result. What example does that set? What does that tell about the value of the achievements of the group? Another thing is create a future that enables your self-preservation, that you will forever remain the leader. What does that say? That you're scared for your position? Does that limit the group? Sacrifice the team to prove a point. Putting it in blunt words, damn the team as long as I show that I'm correct. We have a saying in our language that it's better to be clever than to be correct. Sometimes being smart is more important. What do people hate hearing? I told you. Don't people hate that? That's one of the worst things a leader can do. And perhaps one of the other bad things is to say, we did it ourselves. I did it. No, the group didn't do it. Not very good. Again, you have a cartoon here that speaks to these points. So here are some leaders that failed. They are undoubtedly, they are leaders. Well, most of them were. Only one of them still is. And I mean the guy in the upper left corner, of course. Intimidating, cold, arrogant, untrustworthy. They're followed by people because they want to live. Eccentric, self-centered, poor performers, unable to delegate, or lack, and this is one of the most common things, lack relationship or people skills. It's very easy to lead by force. What does that make of the leader? A manager, perhaps? Not a leader. The first opportunity people will have, they will leave those people. The end of 3 of these here was because of their style of leadership. So I love, one of the books I recommend to read is a book called Catch-22. And of course it doesn't speak about the guy right there on the right, but it's really a lot about him, because you say when there are those people who want to rule, they have to rule, most likely those are the least suited people to be the rulers, those who will do anything to be the rulers. You don't want them to be your ruler, your leader. And that's a catch, right? I want so much to be the leader, perhaps I'm not the proper one if I'm willing to sacrifice the means to get there. And Catch 22, for those who are unfamiliar with the book, and I highly recommend it. It's a book about a squadron somewhere in World War II, totally fictitious. And there is a group of bombers there, a squadron. The one pilot is called Orr, and he says he doesn't want to fly. He's dead scared because it's crazy to fly those suicide missions. So he's crazy if he flies, and he's sane if he doesn't. But if he's sane, he has to fly because the pilots have to be sane. But if he flies, then he must be crazy because it's suicidal, and then he has to be grounded. But if he wants to be grounded, he's sane, so he has to fly. I guess you catch it, a real big catch. So putting it another way, being a leader is like being a lady. If you have to go all around telling people you are, most likely you're not. People have to see it from your action, not from your words. So I mentioned leaders, I mentioned managers. What's the difference? A manager has the one who has authority. He has power. It doesn't mean that he's your leader. It just makes him a boss. He could be your leader. You can see again the cartoon at the bottom. A good manager can also be a good leader. Depends what attributes he has. Leadership makes people want to achieve high goals. The bosses tell them to do what they have to. They might do it because they want a salary, but do they agree? They don't have choice, right? So a management, and we have here the TEMS. So what is management? The act or the art of conducting or supervising something. While leadership is the capacity to guide, to direct a way, to show a course of direction. Good managers can do that also. Poor managers will only do the first. They will supervise, they will tell you what to do. But you will do it because you're told to, not because you believe in that way. So here, good managers lead by example, but if you know these characters, you sort of know that he's leading by example down here in the second low box here. Not a good example, so what does that make him as a leader? So you can see a comparison of a few characters, like leaders will innovate, create new order. Managers want to work within a system. Leaders will inspire trust. Managers will rely on their hierarchical position. This one I love. Leaders ask what and why, while managers ask how and when. Leaders look at the horizon. Managers look at the bottom line. Leaders will originate, while managers will initiate. And the last is a good one also. I'm skipping a few. Leaders will do the right thing, while managers make sure that we do things right. And again, a good leader, a manager can also be a good leader, and then he will do both. By the way, leaders are not always good managers. They might have good ideas, but then they will need some executive to help to put it into action. So it's the same cartoon as before, but the text, again by Colin Powell, a great leader by his own merits, said it's the art of leadership is the art of accomplishing more than the science of management says it's possible. Putting it another way, whenever someone says something is impossible, there's always some idiot that goes and shows it is. So leadership and management could be two very different things. So how do we develop our leadership skills? A very good expert, J.C. Maxwell, and it's not James Clerk Maxwell, he said there are basically 5 levels of leadership. The first, the lowest one, is position. That's the very low position. You enter that level, you have a title, it's great. Either you were appointed or you were elected because you were not the worst in the group, or perhaps you were the best, but you still only have a title. There are often people who only stay in this position. They know how to run the work, the group, no more than that. They will always only have their position. That means that they control the group by authority. They have the gavel, they can do it. But real leadership is more than authority. Real leadership has to be a person that people will want to confidently follow. So that leads to the second group, the permission. I would say this is the foundation. It's getting to people to work with you even when they're not obligated to. They choose to. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? That's when they will let you lead them. That's where they will start listening and following. Because leadership is not at the head, it begins in the heart. And then it has to follow to the head. J.C. Maxwell said you can love people without leading them, but you cannot lead people without loving them. You can be their manager, but you cannot lead them. You have to love the group, love the people, and it has to show from your heart. The third step is production. This is results. When we form a group, let's say a chapter, a student branch, an affinity group, why do we do it? We should have some vision why we wanted it. Because we want to meet, we want to socialize, we want to have fun, we want to have pizza and beer. It doesn't matter right now. But just forming the group on paper doesn't make it an effective group. It has to start showing results. How many of us have joined a chapter, for instance, and saw that at the end of the day, all they do is business? I hope that not many. People want to see that when they volunteer, they join a group, the group has an outcome. It has results. We call that the big MO, momentum. A group should have momentum. Everyone wants to see that they spent their time on something valuable. So people will get together for that purpose. If a group in a reasonable time does not produce results, whatever the group is intended for, the group will disintegrate. The next level is the people development. This is when people will become loyal to you. A leader is a great person, but not because of his own power. When does a leader get real followers? When others feel that he's letting them do things, he's motivating, he's empowering them. Success without a successor, putting it simple, is failure. This is almost the highest level that most people will achieve, because at level 2, people love the leader. At level 3, when we get results, people will admire him because they'll see, he can lead us to something. At level 4 is when people attain loyalty. Again, a nice quotation is, there's a great man who makes every man feel small, but the real great man is the man who makes every man feel great. Make people feel that they have value, that they're contributing. Appreciate even the smallest successes. They will admire you for it. The highest level, personhood, attaining or becoming a real person. That means you need a lifetime of leadership experience. Very few people will actually achieve this level. So this shows you graphically, as you climb up the stairs, that at the first position, at the first level, people let you. They give you the right to lead. The second one, permission, you form relationships. So people follow because they want to. In the third, you show results. They follow because you've done something for the organization. Level 4 is reproduction. You have done things for them. You have made them feel great. You've made them feel they have value. And level 5 is respect, because of what you are and what you represent. So these are the 5 levels. Each of you now can check and see at what level you are and how to get to the next one. There are a few important rules to remember. Number 1, the higher you go, the longer it takes. It's not a linear function. It took me less than 10 years since I joined the society to become a president of the society. I don't think it will take me 10 years to become the president of the IEEE. It takes much, much more. The gaps are larger. The higher you go, you also have to have greater commitments, more time, resources. The easier it is to lead, the higher you go, because you have more experience, more knowledge, and your personal growth will grow together with it. But you must always keep your feet on the ground at the grassroots level. If you're leading a group, you will never be at the same level. You have to recognize that. No matter how low or how much down to earth you are not at the same level with them. And to remain effective, you have to take other influences with you. You have to pull the next leaders. You have to know where you are, and you have to apply the qualities. All of this you have to remember. Nothing of this is trivial. So now let's go to a leadership primer. This was developed by General Colin Powell, and it's really a great summary in quite a few points, but he puts it in the way that we can apply. So he put down here, I believe it's 18 notions. And number 1 is being responsible sometimes means that some people will be angry with you. If you try to satisfy everyone, you will satisfy no one. You try to avoid tough decisions, they'll think you have weak character. If you try to avoid confronting those that have to be confronted, there are troublemakers. You have to put them in the place. And if you offer differential rewards based on differential performance, you will avoid that. If you think you're trying to make everyone happy, you will not. The only people you'll wind up making angry are the most creative and productive people. They want to see in the leader the person who can pull the group to a very well-defined group. Remember that only dead fish follow the stream, and there will always be some people who will try to pull you back. You have to remember to fire, to stop, to go against some people when necessary. Notion number 2 is the day that people stop bringing to you the problem, you've stopped being their leader. A leader is a person people come to speak to, ask, consult with. If they do not, you've lost their confidence. You have to ensure that you create an environment that people can come to you and share your problems with. The third is, I'm sure you always know, there are always groups, those experts and elites that try to shine upon us. Don't be dazzled by them. Sometimes experts are people who have a lot of data, but how good is their judgment? Niels Bohr said that an expert is a person who has made all the mistakes that can be made in a very narrow field. The fact that you have so much data is pretty much like giving a monkey a jewel box. What value does the jewel box have to a monkey? So experts and elites, they might have a lot of data. The question is, do they have the judgment to put that data into the benefit, to the benefit of the group? Real leaders have to be vigilant. They have to have combative, and they must not necessarily follow those trends. It doesn't mean that you have to ignore the knowledge, but it means that you have to apply your judgment. Don't be afraid to challenge the pros, the professionals, even in their own backyard. I've heard so many pros telling me things at work, in other places. Yeah, I will listen to them. I will learn from them. But I will remember to apply what they say just as much as I find value or applicability. The fact that someone is a professional in leadership in some group, does that mean that he can do the same in a different group? Not necessarily. You have to apply judgment again. So challenge them when they say so. If you have a yes man working for you, one of you is redundant, right? So just listening to someone, to some pro and saying yes, 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 what's the value? Notion number 5, never neglect details. Some people think that the leader has to look at the big picture. We say that the Lord is always in the small details. When everyone else is distracted, you have to remain in focus. Remember, strategy is just as good as how well it's executed. Of course, you can't deal with all details. You have to be able to delegate others to look at the everyday things and bring them back to you, because if you as the leader go into every little thing, you will lose the big picture. So sometimes, and this is again one of the quotations I love, the job of a leader is not to be the chief organizer, but the chief disorganizer. Ask the difficult question. Challenge what the group tell you. Go down and ask about the details. But once you have a plan, let your group follow. Let the committees or the groups implement. Don't go and tell them, did you move the cheese from this place to other? They most likely know what to do once it's been agreed upon. This is a beautiful one, I think. You don't know what you can get away with until you try. A very hesitant leader is the one who waits for permission to do everything. Very often it's easier to ask forgiveness than to ask for permission. And you'll get more done. Of course, we're not looking at things which are catastrophic, but if you wait for every little detail, you will be a manager, you will not be a leader. Leaders have to take decisions at a point of uncertainty. Someone told me once that the definition of strategy is a central concept and its evolution under changing circumstances. If you wait for answers by the time you get them, circumstances might change. So, yeah, you have to be prudent but not reckless. You can't go into wild ideas. You have to know the environment. If you wait and ask too many people for permission, someone clearly will say no. So the moral is, and of course, when applicable, don't ask. Act, and of course, please remember, don't go and spend $1 million without considering the circumstances. Please ask, get authorization. But within your authority as a leader, sometimes you will have to take decisions. Number 7, always look below the surface. Don't shrink from doing that because you might not like what you find. We have a saying that whenever you pick up a stone, you'll find a scorpion. That's why the scorpion is here. Someone says if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's working. Why propose something new? Actually, it's an excuse for inaction. That's something a manager might say. A true leader will want to lead the group forward. To lead the group forward, you have to pick up stones. You have to look or explore new opportunities. You have to be proactive. Yes, sometimes under the stones there'll be scorpions. Pick them up carefully, but do it. Number 8 is, organization doesn't really accomplish anything. Isn't it great to put together org charts and Gantt and PERT curves. Sometimes people, leaders, try to focus on org chart and they forget the people that go behind them. Please remember the people. The org chart, first of all, represents people. If you think that an org chart is squares that you put names in them, but you don't have a vision for the group, you don't put a spirit in the group, that's what it will remain, an org chart. We have to make sure to look at the people. The next thing is that org charts and titles count to nothing. If before we looked at organization, now how about calling someone a VP for nothing? Vice President for coffee, right? It's great to have a title, but what does that mean? That'll give some authority, some power, but how much can that title make a person move the group forward? Again, quoting from Catch-22, there's a scene that a new officer comes and he wants, what does he want to do? Every Sunday, there must be a competition between all the squadrons to march left and right. And the group that marches best gets a red flag. And then, what do they say? Yossarian is one of the characters there. He says that the idea of pennants or prizes, in this case titles, was absurd. Like Olympic medals, all they signify is that the owner had done something of no benefit to anyone more capably than everyone else. A title that yields no real result is doing something totally useless, but perhaps better than anyone else. Remember, what we want to do is give a title to a person who can influence, who can do something with that title. Number 10 is an important one. Don't let your ego get so close to the position so that when the position goes, so does your ego. Many leaders fail by the fact they want to remain forever section chairs, chapter chairs, because it looks great on the resume. They have a position. And what happens when they have to leave? They feel dull, they feel terrible because they don't have the title. If a leader equalizes the position to the ego, once he loses the position, and ultimately people lose positions, he will be in a terrible state. Effective leaders actually try to create an environment that people want to do things, they want to continue, and he will also encourage others to come into leadership positions. 11 is a great one also. Fit no stereotypes. Don't chase the latest management trends. Every second year, new ideas come out. Do this, do that. Have this concept, do that. This is the way to lead, nothing else is right. Then the other way to lead and nothing else is right. It will become hectic, erratic leadership. Think what works for your group. If you jump from one trend to another, one theory to another as a leader, that will cause the group to lose focus. You must set core values at the beginning, have a vision, be flexible how to execute them, but not erratic. Management techniques are not mantras, they're not names. They are tools, and if you abuse the tools, you fail. Number 12 is another good one. Be optimistic, always. When a leader is pessimistic, the group, how can that reflect on the group? Cynicism and pessimism will reflect very badly. Someone said, it's a Buddhist proverb, that to every man is given the key to the gates of heaven. Keep in mind that the same key also opens the gates of hell. If you cry and blame, that didn't happen, it didn't work out, that will reflect on the group. If you know someone like that, he's not the leader for you. I don't want a realist. I want someone who is visionary He has his feet on the ground, but he's willing to go forward and aspire to higher skies. Number 13, how do you pick people? Poor selection of people will reflect on the leader. You want to look for the most intelligent and most intelligent people. Try to anticipate their abilities, judge their quality. Look for loyalty, integrity, high energy, a balanced ego, and a drive to make things happen. How often do we look for someone who will not challenge us? I don't want him, he's too clever for me. He might put me in a bad position. That's not a good idea. If you want to choose people who have long resumes, degrees, titles, etc., but with no proven performance, where will that lead the group at the end of the day? Number 14 is a great one. Simplify, keep things simple. The KISS principle says, keep it simple. If not, great leaders are usually the great simplifiers. Sometimes they speak in such language, I call it constructive or perhaps destructive ambiguity. If a leader speaks in an ambiguous manner, he's inconfident and perhaps he doesn't want to take a decision. Not good. A good leader must be able to put things in simple terms. Life is not simple. The leader's position is not simple. But if we don't simplify at the end of the day, we will either lose the focus or lose the people. Number 15 is use the formula of probability between 40 to 70. How do you choose to take a path? Well, you would say you want to be quite certain that you will lead to success. How certain do you want to be sure that you will succeed? 100%? Forget it. You will never get there. If your potential for success is less than 40%, don't go that way. But if it's more than 70%, by far, choose it. Some people go and start doing SWOT analyses and this and that and probabilities and you name it. You might kill a problem, analyze it to death. We call that analysis paralysis. You have to give yourself a reasonable chance to succeed. Of course, consider the risks, but that goes into the 40 to 70. The next thing is the individual on the ground is always right. There will always be those theorists who will prove to you that your theory is wrong. I say, I'm on the ground, I know the facts. Unless you prove me otherwise, I'm right and you're wrong. I love those that come and tell me, but that theory, this theory, and that, and so forth. I don't want to have those theorists telling me what to do. I will listen, but at the end of the day, the facts I have in my hands count more than any theory. Getting to the close to the last one, number 17 says, I hope you like it. It's have fun. If you are not enjoying your leadership position, it's not the room for you. Don't always run at a crazy pace. Take some time off, have socials. In IEEE, it means not all meetings should be technical. Make sure to have a social event, have fun, have a drink, have an ice cream, whatever. People are people. People want to be able to have fun. If you know a grim workaholic that he says, I'm professional, I'm the best, do you know what? I'll help them find a position with my competitor. I don't want those that all they think of is work, because at the end of the day, they will be burnt out, and that will reflect badly on the entire group. And finally, and this is again an important one, leadership is lonely. Remember, no matter what, no matter how much you consult, at the end of the day, it's your decision. Do you know what today I was under great pressure to submit a certain report. And I refused to the management to submit that report. I took the responsibility because I know that the report has facts that have to be corrected. I know it's my decision. I know it's my responsibility. The easiest thing would be go and submit it, go and do it. It'll make everyone happy. It's wrong. You have to know, take a decision, but you have to stand by it. Even when you create a collaborative environment, remember at the end of the day, you're the leader. And let's look at this short clip here. This is after the big bugs come to Flick, who is, remember, the leader from the bug's life. And look what happens there.
So it's your fault.
No, it wasn't me.
First rule of leadership: everything is your fault.
Right, isn't it? Everything is your fault as a leader. So let's summarize before we go to questions and answers. Leadership has a price. Often it's very lonely. You will have anger. You will have disappointed. But you know what I'll tell you? If someone asks me, would you have liked to be the president of the society again? Or would you have given it up? I say, oh no, I wouldn't have missed it. It is a price. The price is often personal, but it helps you to evolve, not only your group. People do not like seeing their leaders as human beings, but they are. There is a human side in each leader. The only point is, how do we show it, and where is the balance? A leader must give up to go up, right? And it means that a leader always has to sacrifice. You have to be ready to do it. So a few misconceptions about leaders. People think leaders are born, not made. That's wrong. You can develop your leadership skills. Does leadership come from positioning the group? Not necessarily. It has to come from within you. Leaders make all decisions for the group. That's wrong. At the end of the day, it's his decision, but not all decisions are made for him. A good group will work together, consult, and at the end, the leader will have to choose if there is a debate. All leaders are popular and charismatic. I showed you some examples of very charismatic, unpopular, and some very popular, but not always charismatic. Leadership is power. It's wrong. Perhaps management is. And of course, that says that leadership is management is also wrong. It doesn't necessarily conflict, but it's not the same. So now really to summarize, we are all leaders. In some position we might be followers, in others we're leaders. But first of all, before we lead others, we have to know ourselves, but remember to empower others. Otherwise we will remain alone. Leaders have to be clear. They have to be able to present their vision, to communicate it. And they always look into the future. If they only look to the present, then they're very limited. They're managers. They must have a vision. Now, look at yourself after you've heard my quite lengthy talk, and I'm sure I've passed the time a little. How will you take what you have learned today and become more proactive in your leadership development? How can you apply everything we've spoken about to apply in your work? So, this leads to the end of my presentation, and Matthew, I guess it's a good time to open for questions, comments, or remarks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for an excellent talk on leadership, the good, the bad, what not to do, and everything in terms of that. I have a couple questions that I can start off on it. For those viewing the webinar, just go ahead and type your question in the question box below. I really liked how you really incorporated leadership positions within IEEE. any pointers for our young professional affinity groups out there, whether they're society level or section level? Any pointers on those leaders to actually run an excellent or a better affinity group? Just any comments on that?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I think it's a great question. First of all, I think that all the 16 points are, but let's put it into practical issues focusing on the IEEE groups. Suppose you're a member of a group and you aspire to become a leader, and then you are a leader. How do you get there even? How do you become a group chair? How do you get onto a board? The first thing is to be active, to show your abilities. Remember, the entry level is you were elected because you showed that you can do things. Not lead yet, but you can do things. You took some positions, climb the ladder, give your time. It can start from the smallest thing, as giving a talk in a chapter meeting, in an affinity group meeting, helping to organize a social. People will get to know you. You might not be elected the first time, but once elected, you'll be in a position to lead the group. It takes a few years. It took me, as I said, 10 years. Once you become the leader, do not forget two things. Know who you are, know where you're going to. By the way, if any one of you remembers or knows the group Slade, it's one of their songs. Know who you are, know where you're going to. You have to know where you came from also. Remember, you came from the group and ultimately you will go back. Don't go against the group. Keep on good terms with everyone in the sense that don't patronize or look down at people. Be active, consult. In board meetings, let everyone talk. If you have a committee, and that's a good way, by the way, to start attaining leadership positions as a small committee. Remember to speak to others or you'll remain alone. Remember that at the end of the day, you are one of a group, but another important thing is always aspire to go higher. But the only way to do it is to prove yourself at the lower level. If you're a committee chair, be active. Show results. Do it not alone, because if you're successful, but you've remained alone, people will not elect you as a leader. So I would say really it's building yourself together with the group and never forgetting that you came from the group, and at the end of the day, you go back to the group and keep on good terms. But remember the focus. If someone is disruptive, I can share with you a short example. I was chairing a conference, an international conference, and there was the one guy, let's just call him Moses because that was his real name. And Moses was always very disruptive. I see a problem, I see a problem. Each committee meeting, I see a problem. And once I said to him, Moses, tell me, are you here with the solution or are you part of the problem? Because if someone is so disruptive, perhaps remember that perhaps you have to remove him or educate him how to work. That's another role you have to do when you climb up the ladder. It's not always pleasant, but those are a few tips I can share from my personal experience. And believe me, I've been in IEEE boards already, and the same things as you go from a chapter to a section to a society to a tab to the technical activities board, MGA, region, and so forth. You will find the same things, only at different levels.
Right.
I hope I covered everything.
No, that was good. We actually have a question coming in from Egypt, and I guess I'll paraphrase just a little bit. There's two questions, but the first is, so you gave a lot of examples of who leaders are, and some of them were in fact dictators, and you obviously mentioned that. But great leaders, as the question states, is very subjective. All right. Maybe you can comment the subjectivity of great leadership, and if there is a general rule on that?
Thank you. Again, a good question. And yes, it is correct that the examples I brought were, I would say, mostly dictators, because that's a very clear case of what might be a very powerful leader, but how good was he for his own people? I can bring contrary examples of dictators who were good for the people, but there are not so many of those, and at the end of the day, they are dictators. Let me go back to the other part, because I think that's much more important. By definition, recognition of the characters of a leader are subjective, because the person who determines if a leader is good or not are his followers. So by definition, it cannot be, there are no objective rules. There are principles that a leader has to follow. We spoke about many of them. But following part of them better and others not so well, does that mean that the leader is bad? Not necessarily. At the end of the day, leaders are people. So there might be very good organizers, but they might have a problem communicating very well. But if they can choose someone good to help them, they can still be good. So I don't think that there's a clear line that you can say dictators are always bad, Democrats are always good, and so forth. Just bringing that as one example. But also you cannot say, do you know what I can tell you, without mentioning names, of course, presidents of the IEEE that were perhaps the grayest characters, gray in the sense they were not shining, and you know what, I think a few of them were the best leaders we had, because they had their feet on the ground. And others perhaps were very good people, but they thought so high they lost everyone. So it's subjective, it's true, and it's really in the eyes of beholders, and therefore we can always say that in any group there will be some people who will think, wow, he's a great leader. Other groups will say he's a terrible leader. It depends what they seek by their own insight in a leader. It will not be always the same.
So we do have a follow-up question to that. Do you have any recommendations for books, MOOCs, or training in IEEE related to leadership?
IEEE has the Center for Leadership Excellence, and I believe they have some very good material there. I'm not familiar with books in the IEEE. I'm familiar with series of books outside, which are not IEEE oriented, but they're general. Look at the series of J.C. Maxwell. Anybody who is an electrical engineer cannot forget that name. Again, it's not James Clerk, but he has a good series of books. But within the IEEE, the Center for Leadership Excellence has some very good material. In fact, it has training material to help the members to develop and evolve within the IEEE. I can also tell you that certain societies, I don't know, of course, how many of those online now are members of societies rather than only sections. But quite a few societies also hold leadership tracks within their conferences. For instance, the EMC Society, of which I was a president, and the Product Safety Engineering Society, we hold leadership tracks in our professional conferences. So that's another resource within the societies to provide such material. But by far, the CLE, the Center for Leadership Excellence, I think is the most readily available material at all levels. So I would recommend to go to that site and try and see what you have there. By far, that's the best. I would also suggest looking at the website of the TEMS, because I believe that there are some good resources there, or reference to other good resources, and that's within IEEE. The TEMS is, of course, the hosting society for this webinar.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'd like to thank you for giving an excellent webinar on the fundamentals of leadership. I'm just gonna. I do have some concluding slides here.
Let me just please put the one slide here with my email, Matthew, before I hope I'm still switched on.
Yeah.
So please, if anyone wishes to communicate further, you can communicate with this email. You can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. I don't promise answering within an hour, but any question will be answered. And I travel and very often am away, but I will answer each question as to the best of my ability. And please feel free to use this link if necessary. And with this, I would like to thank you, Matthew, thank the whole team who hosted this from the Young Professionals Group in the TMS. And of course, thank you, everyone, for joining, and perhaps we'll meet on future webinars also.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So please complete our feedback survey. I'll be sending out a feedback survey in relation to this webinar. This webinar will be posted on YouTube probably within the hour. We do have 2 more webinars coming up this month on our member benefits insurance webinar series, both tomorrow and on November 24th, depending on which IEEE region you're part of. We do have 2 career-based services for our young professionals, the Mentor Center and, again, the Resume Lab, which are 2 excellent resources to actually jumpstart your career or maybe find better opportunities out there. If you have any suggestions for other young professionals' products and services, please shoot us an email or check us out on the web. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending this webinar, and have a good rest of the day.